ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
응답하라 여친. Go to the into the shit.
Back to the count to the Jew. Hey. Oh, Jane, your shoes are so cute.
Thank you.
You got
I don't
them.
think you can see them on camera.
Yeah. They're describe it for me.
They're the Raffia Prada sandals. The chunky
I love
sandals.
the color. I love the platform.
Yes.
It's just
Thank
perfection.
you so much. I had sent a picture of these to Ben earlier in the year. I don't know when.
Oh, you actually said this is what I want.
No, I just sent them like, oh, aren't these so cute? And then he got them for me for our anniversary.
It's super cute.
Thank you.
I wanted to share with you one of the submissions we had.
Yes.
This is the message from one of our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And listener, I want to apologize to you because I think you wrote this a while back, but we didn't see it. Like, we didn't realize we were getting it. The way it comes through is through me. And I'm a terrible manager of my emails, but that's okay. Let me read the message. Hi, my name is Chungmin. I am Black French on my mother's side and Korean on my father's side. Growing up has been kind of hard, still is hard. I find it hard to find acceptance from both my mother and my father's side, especially my father's side. That's the Korean side. I was once close to my father's side, but now I'm a stranger and have a hard time getting in contact with them since I've came out as a transgender woman. We both have our reason why we are estranged, but I would like to maybe get some advice to get how to get some type of bond with them again. This is a tough one.
That is a tough one. And we don't know where her relationship is now since she wrote it. Right. But I'm sure, there are other people out there with similar challenges.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, in terms of estrangement is not a stranger's topic when it comes to Korean families. It's very, very common.
So she's part Korean from her dad's side.
Blasian.
And Blasian because she's Black French on her mom's side.
Yeah.
That in itself, I mean, maybe you can speak to that a little bit, Ellen, because your kids are mixed. They're Korean Filipino.
Yeah.
And were there challenges with, or are there challenges with your kids finding belonging in either community?
I think the questions are sort of rising now. My kids seem never aware of race.
Yeah.
Until like recently, I told you about that experience where they were like, somebody yelled at them like, "You're Chinese, go back to China," and they were like, they were just
no,
like just confused. Yeah. They're like, huh? Like they had no idea it was racism. And now I think they're understanding a little more. It's sad in a way, but it's the reality. Yeah. And it's more funny on their end. It's like people don't know what they are. They're like, "You're Vietnamese, aren't you?" It's like, "No, I'm Filipino and Korean." Like, what's Filipino? What's the Korean part? Because K-pop is like so big. I was surprised that they don't get Korean. And then my husband was like, "Babe, they do not look Korean." I'm like, Sawyer more so maybe, but then he's like, you gotta think of it as if you put them right next to Korean kids, like your kids. They don't look Korean. They're like, if you put them next to 100%.
They do to me, though. I mean,
if you
it's
put
probably
them
because I see them.
Yeah,
as,
that's true. That's because
Korean
you already know.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But if you put them right next to 100% Korean kids, they will not look Korean. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of understand what he's talking about. But in terms of this scenario, there's a lot to unpack there.
There's so much there. So you have like the biracial identity. Already.
Well, you get the external judgment, right? Korea is not very accepting of, in my opinion, I mean, they are now, but the idea of mixed children are not really.
Right. And it's kind of objectified.
Yes.
I mean, you spoke to this a little bit at a previous episode, I think, yet to be released, but the objectification.
Oh, that's right.
And it's not the same thing as full acceptance or belonging. It's kind of
you're
like
seen sort of as exotic.
And like
it also depends on how pretty you're gonna look as a mixed child. That's and that really reveals how toxic Korean culture can be.
Yeah.
Because if you are not pretty, if you're not considered good looking by society standards and you're a mixed child,
it's a double strike.
Right. If you're good looking and you're a mixed child, then okay, you can be elevated.
It's a strike for being mixed, but a little bit of redemption.
You're like, okay, you can
points redeemed.
We'll take you in because you're good looking.
Right.
Like it's honestly awful. But then on top of that, add to the fact that you are gonna be transgender woman from male to female.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I just see all these challenges because we live in a society where you have to fit in a box and you have to fit in, like, people want to know what you who you are so they know how to treat you.
Yeah.
Right? Are you a man or a woman?
Yeah.
And then what is your race?
Yeah. And Korea in particular.
When you don't fit into that.
Likes to put
hard.
Everybody in a box. It's a homogenized culture. Everybody has to fit in a box.
Yes.
That's our collective identity.
Like when I went to Myeongdong to shop and I go into a cosmetics store and they just start talking to me in Mandarin and then
I forgot
and then
to
in
tell
broken
you.
English, and I said, just speak in Korean. And they
forgot.
said, oh, I'm sorry, like 스타일이 너무 외국인 스타일이라서
Yeah.
I didn't know how to treat you. And I'm like, why don't you treat everybody the same?
Yeah. I forgot to tell you that happened to me also in Myeongdong.
Yeah.
They were trying to sell me bags and they're like, konnichiwa. Da, da, da. And I was like, 왜 그러세요? And he was like, oh. 아니요, 저 한국 사람이거든요.
Yeah.
And I gave them this deadpan face.
Yeah.
And they're like, 죄송합니다. Like they were apologetic. I was like,
they are not ready for people. They're still 2024.
Right.
They cannot deal with people who don't visibly fit into a clear category.
And they can't handle, even though they're seeing a lot of foreigners, they really truly look at them as foreigners. Like you are an outsider, and they talk to you funny.
Yes.
Like I'm like, the way they're talking to me literally sounds like one of those gag men shows. Like, oh, like it's so over the top.
Yes.
I'm like, why are you not talking to me like a real person? Like you would never say to like a Korean person walking by, like, 이거 사세요. Like, oh, 이거 사세요, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are you talking like a clown?
But that's why I felt self-conscious, because there's a reaction no matter what. Either like you don't speak Korean well enough, or you speak Korean way better than they expected. So then
or they get accusatory, like, oh,
yeah,
왜 안 말도 안 했어요? Like, why didn't you say anything? I'm like,
right,
bitch, I never said anything. Like, why didn't you let me know that I'm Korean?
They feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or they feel embarrassed.
They feel embarrassed, but they project that onto you.
Yes.
And not to mention, it's such a big scandal in Korea to be gay, to openly admit you're gay.
Right.
You know that bald comedian that's he got blacklisted. He wears the thick round rimmed glasses and he's bald, and he's usually in like a lot of the panels.
Okay.
And everybody knows he's gay.
Yeah.
But the fact that he actually said it out loud.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't know.
Hong, I think it's like Hong something. But he got blacklisted. He couldn't work for a while.
That's terrible.
Because but it was a known thing. Everybody knew he was
don't
gay.
ask, don't tell.
Yeah, like just as long as you don't talk about it, we can pretend, and like,
because we like the fun parts of
you're fun.
Yeah,
your
you're
gayness
funny.
is so fun.
Yeah.
But we don't want you to actually say you're gay.
Then that's too real. That's too
And then there's remember the trans model?
Yes.
And she was so beautiful. Was it her
Harisu?
name? Harisu. And they made an ad where she would be like, do you remember that? Or like, oh, she would gulp and then she would show her Adam's off.
Yes,
it was
I
such
remember
a
that.
big like scandal.
Yes.
Like,
Whatever happened to her?
Well, I think she still continued to have a career.
Okay.
But it was only because she was so beautiful.
Again.
Right.
If you're beautiful,
she was
cover
so
a lot.
extraordinarily beautiful, right? You had to be like, but I do remember seeing a documentary about her and her parents, and they were ashamed of her. They were so ashamed. They were like, God, please forgive us. They were super religious too, I think.
Yeah.
And they filmed them and they didn't want to be seen, so their faces were blurred out. And they're like, yeah, it's a blasphemy that ours. I don't know why this happened to us. They looked at as, even though their transgender daughter became like this phenomenon, they were like hard, ashamed.
Yeah, and it's hard to blame them solely for that.
Right.
Because,
I mean, a lot of people did not blame them at all. They felt sorry for the parents.
Sorry for the parents.
Yeah, they felt like, oh my gosh, like we understand how you feel.
Yeah.
And even though she got the attention, I don't know that she was accepted.
Sure.
Yeah, like I don't know how strong her foothold. I mean, this was before K-pop revolution too.
Yes.
But ultimately, I don't think they ever. From that point, I don't know if they reconciled since then. But at that point, it was like a known thing that they were estranged.
I see.
And they had been disowned her.
Yeah.
So in this, I think the most, and I say this as someone who is estranged from my parents, but my father reached out and, by the way, he hasn't contacted me again since seeing his grandkids once.
Really?
And I have been waiting for him to take the lead, but I'm like.
So you didn't follow up and say.
I did not. And I don't know, maybe he wants something from me, but I want him to put the effort.
I think he should put the effort.
Yeah, especially like after me saying you have to. And because I also don't know if he got kind of reprimanded by his wife.
He got some backlash.
Like I don't want, is that he's back
from your stepmom. Yeah, to make him feel bad about doing
so
that.
then he like scurried back to his normal self of not wanting to do anything.
Could be all of that, but yeah, I mean, I think you're doing the right thing by just keeping the ball in his court. And
for a long, long time, I want to say this to our listener, I wanted so badly that bond with my family. The thing, obviously, coming out as trans is nothing similar to me, but I will say my stepmother could never accept that I was not her biological child. Even though she won't say like that, ultimately, she always saw me as a stepdaughter, someone that she didn't ask for, but got stuck with. And she could never, I think she wanted to, but she just couldn't do it. She couldn't accept me as just her daughter. And for the longest time, I thought, if I just had that everything would could be fixed.
Yeah.
And we just could not get there. And I honestly don't know if that really could have fixed it. Because there was so much hurt. But at a certain point, I decided I grew up and found myself. And I know what I'm about.
Yeah.
And I know my worth.
Yeah. And I think that's key for this listener, too, is to find acceptance, or like accept where things are and know that that doesn't change their worth, their identity, their value. And once you have that acceptance, then you can, leave it up to time. Leave it up to them to know that you're open for connection whenever they are ready. But it doesn't sound like it's a situation where, for this listener, where
because if they've
the
shown
parents
themselves,
are going
right?
to, they've shown themselves. Yeah.
When people show you who they are, believe them.
Believe them, and know that it's no fault of your own. It's who they are, and that's separate from
exactly.
from who you are.
You have to. It doesn't define you.
No.
You know. I mean, of course, it's a beautiful thing to have a connection with your biological family, but you can also thrive without that connection. And I am living proof of that. I have my chosen family. I have created my own family. I have, I've learned all the ways to be a parent on how to not parent from my parents. And it's always going to hurt. That hurt will never go away. And you also have to accept that as well.
Yes.
But I can tell you, listener, I am genuinely happy with where I am now. And that is a place I never thought I would be, not having a relationship with my parents, not in a real way, you know. My dad's trying now, but for me, even with this, I am pretty sure I'm not going to be at their funeral. And that's a really sad thing to have thought about. Both my stepmother, both my father, I don't think I can be there. It's past.
Yeah.
Even with my dad reaching out now, it's like almost like I've said to you before, this is for him. This is not really for me. But I do remember, though, being in that position of wanting it so badly. At that time, you could not tell me otherwise.
Right.
And you have to go through it. You have to go through that journey of like yearning.
Natural.
Yeah, it's totally natural
to
it's absolutely
want that, of course.
Yes. You should not. It makes sense that you want this connection, but I also want you to know that you don't need it to know who you are, to thrive in life, and to be confident in what you're about.
Right.
So if you put in the attempts and there's some reach coming back, wonderful. But if you put in the attempts and you just get a brick wall and they don't want to reciprocate anything,
then that's a them
that's
problem.
on them.
That's on them.
That's on them. And you have to recognize that.
I mean, just as you can't force people to act a certain way, be a certain way, you know, we are not responsible for our parents' happiness, their wholeness, or for anybody else, for that matter. And I think that's a tough lesson for a lot of people in our generation with parents who come from, you know, different background, different culture, a different world, you know, especially so for, you know, children of color who are our age.
It's unfortunate, you know. I mean, times are changing, right? But like, I think the trans community, even though there's acceptance, it's almost like sometimes it seems it's for show and not like, you know, do you really recognize what it is to accept somebody as whole? Like, there's layers to that. And, you know, trans women in particular are the most, you know, targeted for hate crimes. There's just so much as a society that we're behind on. And then when it hits so close to home with your own parent, not being able to see you as their child first,
and maybe that gives you know, not just a layer of understanding, but maybe that allows you to think of it less as a personal problem. just like you were talking about that Korean model, Harisu, and her parents. It's, the parents are a product of the world, the society they live in, and the culture. And so we still do not live in a world where it's friendly to, trans people, not to mention families of, or parents of, like our parents' generation, right? We might have reached some level of acceptance, in our generation.
Yeah.
But the reality is that they have their own issues to work out. And
I mean, they've been, especially in Korean culture, they've been basically like programmed to think it's a sin.
Yeah.
It's an abomination. Like literally.
Unheard of.
Yeah, I think that's what the Korean, the parents of Harisu said. They're like, our child is an abomination to society. They also said, we are so ashamed. We are sorry. They were saying sorry to Korean society that our son turned out like this.
We are crazy.
That's the mindset they live under, right? So if you live in that, programmed view, you gotta be able to say, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying, it's acceptable how they're thinking, but it speaks to a larger problem that they're a product of.
Right.
And that has made them distance from their own child. And it's really unfortunate. I will say this. If my children came out gay, came out trans, whatever, I genuinely think that it would not be any situation for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a hard thing to actually say out loud. It is a
hard thing to say out loud, because I have friends who have told me that they don't know how to talk about it because they would not be okay if their kids came out. And I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's like, that's my child.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
like,
I've already... That's who they are. But it's like, like we went through that. And it's like my friends, like queer friends, like I love them. And I want full acceptance and belonging for them. And I've seen their individual stories of how they arrived at varying stages.
And I think that's the difference. When you are around people of that community, it is not this sort of crazy out there scenario, right? That has been villainized.
No.
When you know people that are trans, when you know gay people, like
it
of the LGBTQI, you realize, okay, this is my people.
Yeah.
It no longer becomes this, but that's
it's
the
just
thing.
an idea for so many people.
But that's the thing about these old school Korean parents is like they have no exposure to.
But they were there. I mean, they were always there. It's just that they couldn't make themselves known.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially in Korean society, where it's deemed as an abomination of being human. So. Try. There's no harm in trying.
There's no harm.
In fact, it's brave of you to try. But as with anything,
try to have the connection.
That's absolutely, you're right. As a child, but know that. Please build a foundation within yourself that you are already enough.
I think that's
you're above all. I mean, you don't have to be religious to believe you were created with a purpose, with the beauty of you already, and there's nothing that can say otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's unfortunate that we live in a world where it was all defined for us.
Yeah.
Right. gender, sexuality, all of that, because then it's like you feel like the outcast and you feel like the one that something is wrong with, because the burden's on you.
Nobody makes you feel like an outcast as Korean society does.
Right.
Korean society
if it's hard
knows how to shame you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If it's hard for somebody like me who grew up speaking Korean, going to Korean school, is like
Jane is the poster child
heterosexual cisgender woman,
and it's still
mom,
hard.
and it's still hard, then I can't.
Even for
imagine.
Those of us who are born Korean, born not me, but in Jane's case, 얌전하고
full Korean. I still wasn't recognized. Like my husband's family, they're like, "Oh, it's your first time in Korea, isn't it?"
Wow.
No, it is not. But just like already, there's a sense that you don't belong here.
Yeah. There's so much judgment.
For me, I think of it as a homecoming of sorts.
Yes.
Even Ruby, who, she had a friend over for a play date and they're looking at their globe. She's like, find Korea. And her friend's like, where's Korea? And she's like, Korea, where I'm from. And I just had to chuckle in my head because I'm like, I didn't... that came naturally to her, where she feels this connection. And I didn't like hone it in her and brainwash her and
you
say
absolutely
like,
don't.
You're Korean.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's funny.
I love that.
So
Where
it's like
I'm
you're
from,
born with
bitch.
that's what we have to make sense of ourselves. Everybody makes sense of themselves with, who they are and that belonging. And when you don't have it, you don't feel whole.
Yeah.
So I am feel so much empathy for that listener who has several layers of feeling like an outcast in their own family. But I think you hit the nail on the head, where you have to find that acceptance and love for yourself first, and know that you're already enough and you don't need the affirmation from people outside of you, even when they are your own parents.
And they are, and that is really hard to hear.
It's so hard. It's so
hard to hear.
It's so hard to. Basically, we're saying you don't need that. When they were asking,
you don't need your parents.
When they're asking, how do I get it?
Forget them. No, honestly, I could not have said this. I don't know, like maybe 5 years ago. I would not have felt certain saying this.
Oh, for sure. Same.
To be able to say this now.
Yeah.
I would not have been able to say this in my 20s, in my 30s. I can say this to you now, having lived through it and really feeling at home with myself. Oh my gosh, there's a part of me that's like, I wish I got to this earlier, because there's so much more peace now.
Yeah.
There's so much peace, and I was like, man, I went through so much of my life.
Yeah.
Feeling I feel like I suffered so much. I'm like, I put myself under so much stress because I did not feel I was enough.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like. And I feel like I've only gotten to this place for just a couple of years.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I am who I am.
Yeah.
And I am
I
enough.
don't think that, I mean, I see it differently, that it's because you went through all of that.
Right.
You're now here.
Right. And that's why I'm like,
you've let that all
think
go.
At first, and then I'm like, no, but I could not have gotten here.
No, it wouldn't have been the same.
So I know you seek advice, and everybody can say whatever they want to say and give you advice and mean it. And I do mean it fully, but you are going to have to go through it. Like there's no shortcuts to know for yourself. You're going to have to try. If your heart is being beckoned to try with them, do it. Because I tried with my parents. Now I can say, oh, I tried so hard. I wish I had given up earlier. I couldn't have.
Right.
I had to know that I gave it my everything. And it just could not happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you will not know that until you try.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be your own path. There's nobody else in this world like you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to go through it, and you're going to process the feelings in the way that only you can process.
Yeah. And I hope that, you know, you have friends and people that chosen family. You said it. Like chosen family that can help you go through this.
Right.
Because
that's true.
Life is relational.
Yeah.
And you can't go through things in like alone and in isolation.
Right.
And
that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
That is, I don't think that I could have found my strength had I not my chosen family Adonis.
Right. I
could not have done it alone.
Mm-hmm.
When they say often about raising kids, it takes a village. It takes a village as an adult.
Oh yeah.
You need your village. You need your people. You need to have people that really have your back, that are, and you're gonna fall. Like you're gonna fall so many times, and you need the people in your life that can help you get back up. And I was able to do what I was able to do because I had Adonis at the time, and now my kids.
Yeah.
And I know, and good friends like you. Like I can go to people that understand where I've been, and you need that.
You do.
You need to find that first, and I think make yourself in a place where this would be nice to have with your family, but it's not dependent.
It's not going to complete you. Yeah.
Get yourself to a place first where you know who you are, and you know what your worth is, and you know that no matter what rejection comes your way, you are still, it's never going to change who you are in your value, which is...
Right. And okay, I think an important part of this, especially with your story, Ellen, is to give people the permission to leave toxic relationships with parents. Because a huge part of our Korean culture is you keep your parents in your life because of just solely based on their relationship to you.
Yeah, and that is also
we need to have
permission.
Yeah, and that's the conditioning where it's like that family obligation, but that's not the true meaning of community.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So giving yourself the permission to leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's even hard when I tell people that I'm estranged. I'm not ashamed of it, but people try to put shame on me. They'll be like, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't not
really
talk to." Yeah, and I feel I get pretty angry.
I think it's easy for people to say that who have not experienced that.
Yeah,
I mean, to put it simply,
or they think that they know what it is to be rejected by your family.
They're like,
they don't know.
like it's always hard with parents.
Right.
Or like,
it's not. I'm not
like,
talking about your everyday typical tiff, right? Of course, every person has their own struggles in their own way, but to be actually, you don't know what it's like. For my parents have disowned me multiple times. They did it like it's the drop of a hat, and they always threatened me with it, and they actually did do it, and I always felt it was my duty to find my way back in and beg for their love. Or not even love, beg for them to just let me in their life. That's not how it should be. I mean, that's such a abuse of power.
Yeah.
Families, especially Korean families, were made to believe family is absolutely everything, and they find power in that, and that's how they control. And I love my culture. I really do. I really love my culture, in how when that works in the right way, in a healthy way, it's the most beautiful thing ever. I would love for my kids to always come home to me, and know that I am their I gave them life and that they would, but I would never force that upon them.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be their choice.
Right.
That they want to be around me, that they find me a safe place.
Yes.
But if your parents didn't create that for you, it is not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it is totally acceptable and your choice to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I know it doesn't sound pretty, and it isn't. It isn't pretty. It hurts. It hurts like hell. Like there's no winning in it.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to live.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't live with that kind of chain
mm-hmm.
holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know. I think that's super, super wise. Yeah, and it takes a level of maturity, and it's a lot of things. It's like a combination of just experiences, failures, repeated cycles, and maturity to arrive at that acceptance.
And if you think about it, it's not even just like parents. Mm-hmm. It's someone that you thought you would have
absolutely
shared your life with.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people, like, I wasn't blessed with parents, but I was luckily blessed with a partner in life that I helped build our family together, right?
Yeah.
But there's other people who struggle in romantic relationships who they chose to build a life with.
Yeah.
And it turns out they abuse that power.
Mm-hmm.
So it can apply in many forms.
Yes.
But in the end, if you aren't able to be authentically yourself, and there's always gonna be people, not everybody's gonna like you in this life.
No.
But it is not your job to be liked by everyone, and it's also impossible to be liked by everyone. You just have to create the space within yourself, but also with people who you connect with. Life is about connections, and you find the people who you connect with that get you, and you get in return. And that is family.
Yeah, you're so right.
That is family. So be kind to yourself and give yourself permission to do what works for you, because there is nobody in this world like you who's going through it. Your experience is unique. And, you can seek advice, and we're happy to give it. But at the end of the day, you are the one that has to live with it.
Yeah. I love that.
I'm so fucking deep, bro. That's a wrap.